Welcome to Forever Exiled. I'm Justin, aka Tags.
And I'm Tyler, Wrecker of Days.
Episode 245 of Forever Exiled. And this is our chat about PoE 2 without being embargoed. So it's going to be a fun episode. Big shout out to our patrons. Thanks so much for the support. Thanks for everybody who resubbed up this week and upgraded. We love your faces so much. Patreon gets you access to After Dark. It's our podcast after the podcast where we continue to talk.
It's just your description of stuff and things is really right on.
You never know what you're going to get in After Dark. You could get literally anything.
But there's no way to describe. It's not like it's special. I mean, it's totally special and you should sign up, but it's not like it's special. We just chat, right?
We just chat. And it's
no notes, no script. We refuse notes. If he wants to talk about something specific in After Dark, well, you can stick it.
Actually, you know what? That's probably the best place to get us to talk about something, because we'll just bring up random shit all the time in After Dark. It's all over the map.
Actually, you know what we should talk about in After Dark? I have been extremely excited for the rotary cultivator that I bought before we went to LA.
Oh, you bought one? Cool.
Oh, so good. I couldn't find any good prices on Amazon that I liked. And I'm also quite picky with them because a lot of them can fall apart. I don't want to have to keep retwisting it.
Sure.
Nobody, not even Home Depot. Our beloved Home Depot didn't even have them. And I was making fun of them while I was there. I'm like, the guy's like, we should have them. I can't believe we can't find one. Like, there's not even a spot. Like, it's crazy. I'm like, I know, right? It's in season. You're supposed to have them and you don't have them. It's like, well, you can order online. And I'm like, don't even start. Your company is the worst for ordering online with. And he's like, I know, I don't order from them either. And he's one of those guys where you can just tell he's been there for 1,000 years. His Home Depot vest is like, it doesn't even say Home Depot on it. So
but I love those people at Home Depot.
Oh, they're the best.
Yeah. You can talk to them about anything too.
You could, right? They're like the classic After Dark. You go to that person, you're like, hey, listen, I'm just trying to hang up my sound blanket. I just need some screws here. And they're like, come with me. Yeah. Let me show you. And they'll spend half an hour with you trying to find. That's right. Here are the screws. Here are your anchors. Do you need a tool? No, that's okay. Because you could just, you know what? Let me tell you a trick.
Yeah.
Here's my daughter, when she was moving out from music school, let me tell you, like Home Depot is literally the best, but they didn't have the rotary cultivator. I even went to some of the nurseries around and they don't call them rotary cultivators. I forget what they call them. They have a slang term that's very common, but I don't remember it. Canadian Tire saved the day.
Get out. Canadian Tire had it.
And
Canadian Tire has a lot of stuff.
They do. And it actually had the extended handle, which I really wanted because the one that we have, that actually my grandma had from like way back when she was in Saskatchewan decades ago. It's just really small. Like they just had a jimmied handle on there, like, you know, because they all kept breaking or whatever. So it's only like half the size I need. So I've had some good times. So anyway, Justin,
now you don't have to hear about After Dark.
No,
we just did.
No, I have all my adventures with my rotary cultivator to talk to you about. Oh, you don't even know. I've been going to town cultivating with rotary style.
That's so awesome. Anyway, well, good for you. Hey,
happy Father's Day, everybody.
The least celebrated holiday is coming up. So happy.
It's not even a holiday.
It's not even a thing.
It's just a day.
Yeah,
no, it's not like Mother's Day is a holiday. It should be though. Mother's Day should be actually a holiday where they take like they take the first Monday off of the month or something.
Sure.
Mother's Day should be.
I agree.
But I do love the concept.
Like the least. It's like it's there because we had to. We gave mom something, so they're like, well,
listen, we were gonna do it anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Like the result. That's. I mean, sure, okay, yeah.
Yes,
we wanted to be dads, but
to all the fathers and father figures and father roles out there, happy Father's Day.
It was just a bonus getting kids out of it.
Yeah, that's right.
You look at me funny. You know that was. Never
You're
mind.
Having a baby.
I was going to bring up some Lonely Island. What was that? Jizz in my pants.
That's right.
That one's not family friendly. Earmuffs for that one. Retroactive.
Yeah, go back in time. But yes, happy Father's Day to everybody. I'm going to ask you how your week is, but you have a weird note here.
I do. It's been a while since we've screwed up anybody listening in their vehicles. So I just wanted to, just in case, maybe it's Father's Day. Maybe you're heading back to celebrate Father's Day with someone or for yourself. So let me help you out. Hey, Google, navigate me home by car.
Nice job. Thanks, Google.
So let's see. But first you'll have to unlock your device.
And now Tyler's phone.
Now, my phone's on D&D, and for some reason my phone said, okay, but first you have to unlock your phone.
That's awesome.
Stupid.
How
Anyway,
was your
that's
week?
for anybody that's driving home and they don't want to get home by car.
And now
Hopefully
they
you
know.
had to pull over and you're slightly cursing our name a little bit.
Mhm.
It's like private league hate in real life. You're
That's
very
right.
welcome.
Yeah,
Hardcore
real
mode.
life hate. That's our favorite. How was your week?
Real life hate. Good and good. I mean, this was our week where we came back from LA, and so hang on. We've been back. Today's Friday.
Just
We've
this
been back
week?
from LA for just a week, right? We
Yep.
came back Friday evening ish, and so it's been a different week, but normal. I mean, you're catching up with the kids. You had an extremely busy weekend, and I can't thank you enough for with all the different things that you needed to do with the software that we brought back from the LA trip and dealing with the videos. You spent a lot of your weekend dealing with that instead of with your family. So I do want to thank you for that for sure, because that was,
It was fun.
I mean, we're
It's
not
good.
YouTubers, but
No.
it's time sensitive, and I appreciate you putting in all
Well,
that
and you have to
effort
get
and putting in
Gigi's
that
okay,
effort for
so-
me as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so the weekend was great, though. The family was very excited to get me back, which was nice.
Mhm.
And it was just nice to get back into the routine. It was
Sure.
just awesome seeing the kids laugh and cry and argue again, and have my wife smile or roll her eyes at me. You know, it's nice. I mean, we were only gone for a few days, but I enjoy the homecoming. And it was an interesting week for me just because a lot of it kind of did revolve around Path of Exile too.
Hmm.
Like, we knew all the stuff
Mhm.
that people are going to say, with the exception of their opinions in their videos, but it was interesting to see the content come out as it came out. The reveals that Jonathan had in his Ghazi interview, which I haven't finished, but there's so much more information in that interview that he did
cool.
on Tuesday. Like, when that embargo lifted, the stuff that Jonathan talked about, there was so much more that wasn't
good.
even in
Cool.
the demo that we played. And so it was just really neat seeing it all come out and all the different videos and seeing people's reactions to it. And because we're recording later now, we're a week later, and everybody else's opinions regarding the details that they're allowed to talk about now after the embargo lifted. It's neat to see that out in our community, specifically the Forever Exiled community, talking about all of it. And we're a little bit later, so it's a little bit more casual. And
Mhm.
I don't know, it's been good, but it's been nice to get back into the swing of things in the personal life. Spent a lot of time just some things that happened in the emergency room and with the doctor, and everything's all good. It's just, you know, things needed to get done
For
and
you?
more in a timely manner. Yep.
Okay.
And just with how our medical system works, it was more efficient for me to go through the painstaking hours in the emergency room.
That sucks, but
It's all right. It's how it goes.
Glad
It's
it's
good
taken care of.
stuff. I'm very thankful for our free medical system.
Mhm.
I was actually, what is it? Visual Capitalist. I enjoy having their stuff come across my news feed, and they have some really fun stuff. And I enjoy reading about how they come up with their data too. So I don't, like, marry myself to it. But I discovered that the United States, according to Visual Capitalist, is the only, what was the wording? Only, like, country that's got their stuff together. What's the proper term that they used that doesn't have universal health care? Wait, universal health care. What's the place I like? Visual Capitalist. That's what they said. The US is the only developed country that does not have universal health coverage.
Interesting.
That's it. Good talk, everybody. How about you, Justin? How was your week? You had a crazy busy week.
Yeah, my week was fun. The weekend was fun getting all the PoE 2 stuff together. We had to get stuff off to GG, and shout out to whoever at Grinding Gear Games that had to go through all that footage, because you have to remember there were, I think, 40 content creators there. All of them would have recorded up to 7 hours. I mean, I'm sure nobody actually, I don't know, maybe some people did have full 7 hours, but then they would edit that footage for what they wanted to put out, and then somebody at Grinding Your Games would have to watch it to okay it, because there were some things that they wanted to take out. And in their email, they asked that it would be your final footage that you would send to them. And so my message to them was like, this is not going to be the final footage, because if you're listening to this on YouTube, it's playing in the background. This is Tyler and I actually playing. We couldn't use it last week because Tyler played predominantly Witch for the whole time, so we couldn't use that footage. So I said, hey, here's 2 hours that I've put together. I've taken out most of everything I think you would want to take out, but it's not going to be the final footage, because the final footage isn't going to be done until literally 12 to 15 hours before it releases. So I can't, you got to watch.
Right.
This is what we're going to use.
And
I don't
it's
know if
going
we're
to
going
be
to use the whole
released
thing.
after the embargo, right?
Yeah, so they did. They watched our whole thing because they picked out. Well, I only had 2 things I think that I had to fix. But they were, you would have had to actually be watching them, like to see it. So
yeah, they probably have a whole team because they were trying to get it done in a hurry. It's not just what's on the screen; it's also stuff you're not allowed to talk about. And so many of these videos that people were pumping out, they were trying to get them out as fast as possible so that they could get the most clicks and most attention. Yeah. And you have to care about what people say too.
Yep. So shout out to whoever was doing that there, because that was really impressive. And if you're wondering, the main things that we just had to take out was certain parts of the tree hadn't been finished yet, so they didn't want that kind of stuff shown. And if there were any weird little laggy things or audio blips,
we were on our own private server while we were there, just within that place, and so of course they don't want lag spikes to show, because obviously it's not going to be part of their designated final product. I mean, obviously that kind of stuff will happen at some point in any game, but
it's probably one of the instances
people are
of the
idiots, and they'll be like,
look how crappy the game's working right now.
Yeah, the one thing I did take out, which I wanted to keep in just for me and yours pleasure, but they had anytime you would talk to a vendor or an NPC, if you would cancel out of when they first were saying hello to you, there was this audio of some person in the background just going, skip. And it was so fun.
A little file every time you skip.
Yeah. And
skip.
It was funny because
we laughed.
It was actually one of the only things, like when I watched back our footage that people are watching right now, and we did release it earlier this week without us talking in audio, so you could enjoy the amazing work of Camille and the sound people at Grinding Gear Games. But it was the first time I actually heard a lot of the content, because I couldn't hear it when we were playing. So it was really cool to listen to it and hearing like actual, voice lines from, let me just get that, actual voice lines from the characters, and the noises from the bosses and stuff, and the sound effects of the skills. So yeah, that was me. That was my weekend getting that done. And then my week was just slam, man. Like, it was just 3 days off, but it's really busy, and we're got a lot of fun things coming up, and I'm really excited for them, but it's just busy. And then unfortunately, just because of the timeline for us going away, I had to up my dosage, and I had to try and plan when to start that dosage, because next week's going to be very busy. So unfortunately for Tyler, it ended up being last night that I had to start it so I could run through the weekend to get my body used to it. But I took them again this morning, because I have to take them at night and in the morning. And every time I up this dosage, it's only 50 milligrams, but holy balls, man, it wipes me out. Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that. But otherwise, you know what? The week was good. It was fun to be able to finally talk about the Witch and chat about it in our Discord, and see people commenting about it online. And it was fun. Like, it was cool to see, to be able to share that with people and see other people's opinions. And I mean, not everybody's opinion, but most people's opinion on the gameplay. Sorry if you hear me, just Tyler's sick again, so I got to make sure I get that out.
It's been a long time since I've been sick. It has
been. A long time for you.
Why? What do you mean?
Well, not most people don't get sick like once a month, every 2 months. I'm not sure that's the average.
I'm fine.
But
yeah.
So did you watch our gameplay? Did you watch our...
Not all of it yet. I thank you for accommodating me with your gameplay as well. I thought it would be fun to play around and try and find a way to do my own little video and little clips and things that I thought. And I mean, it just takes way more time than... I'm not used to making those videos. So part of it's the learning aspect, which is not being smooth. It is. And I really enjoy it. But part of that is I probably don't have the time to make the video anyway. So then adding the learning time on top of that, or the relearning time on top, it's tough to balance.
Sure.
So I'm like barely started, but I keep like, okay, I'm kind of at the stage now where it's like, oh, this would be kind of how I'm going to organize it and do it, all that. But so I haven't gone through the whole video yet, but I've had it playing up top just in the living room for a bit so I could catch different snippets. But it's one of those things where all of a sudden you realize I didn't watch 10 minutes. So I'm like, dang it, I should just sit down and watch it like a movie one night.
It's like one of the only episodes we put out that's quite that long. It's like an hour and 48 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
But it was fun I enjoyed watching just for hearing it, because I didn't catch it when we were playing it. So yeah, it was fun. Your first note here that you have about our gameplay because we're going to talk about it. So if you're watching, we're playing the warrior and the witch. We played the warrior and the witch for predominantly the whole thing. If you notice, somebody did call it out in the video. It is true. In the beginning, I started as a monk. The first part of the recording is me starting as a monk, and then I did switch it over to the footage where I swapped to the warrior. I just didn't want people to miss the footage of Tyler starting as the witch and how it all started out. It seemed to make more sense to make sure that was congruent in the beginning and that you could see how the witch sort of plays through. So I did switch to a warrior, but I just want to bring this one up real quick. Tyler's note about the witch and the sorceress being different classes. This week, thanks to Tyler in Discord, I had a little tiny heart attack at one point during the week. So I see a message on Discord that said something to the effect of that, oh yeah, well, Tyler kind of confirmed that it plays fine with the witch, or something about the controller with the witch or the controls with the witch. And then somebody else said, I didn't think they said the word witch. And I'm reading this going, no, I'm sure. Like, I was anal through our last recording to make sure we didn't say anything that related to witch. So I didn't think much of it. And then I get a message from Tyler saying, oh, I guess I should have been more careful. I didn't even think about the fact that the witch and the sorceress are different. And I'm like, what? So at that point, I got to my computer. I started pulling up our file so I could run transcription.
Because in my mind, from PoE 1, witch is just the necromancer and sorceress is the elementalist. Like, I'm not thinking them as separate classes. Right. And so it was, I don't know. Because the sorceress was already revealed. I got the I swear in my head, like in our podcast. Anyway, I swear I screwed it up. Go ahead.
Well, so as I'm getting to my computer, I send him a message and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you didn't say the word witch. And his first response to me was, yeah, I did lots. And I'm like, what? And then he followed it up with, well, at least once. And so at this point, I'm pulling it up on my computer and I'm visualizing myself strangling Tyler because I'm stressing that we did say it. But then also I'm like, did you hear it? Or is this from the Discord message? And so thankfully I pulled up the whole transcription. I went through every single, I first searched for the word witch, the actual WITCH. There was none. So I'm like, well, what if it's thinking it's witch, WHICH? So I went through all 48 instances of where we said the word witch in our episode to confirm that we never said the word witch. And then I felt relief as Tyler's body just slowly went limp under the pressure of my hands on his neck. And
what about good. After dark? Did you do that for After Dark?
I didn't do After Dark, no. Because the particular comment was from someone that's not the patron. So After Dark people know to keep our secrets. Sometimes I'm drinking. You can't repeat what happens in After Dark.
I can't tell you how many times Justin has said, I probably shouldn't say this.
I probably shouldn't say
After
that.
Dark.
That has happened a few times before.
Happened. Like, it's barely happened.
It's happened a few times. I said it. I'm admitting it. I have.
A week,
especially recently. I did say some things in the past couple episodes, but not about the witch. But yeah. So anyway, it was fun. Now we get to actually talk about our gameplay and the witch and what we felt about it. I don't know. How do you want to do this? I guess we're just going to run through whatever our thoughts were. You probably have a lot of thoughts, and I'm just going to talk about my gameplay, and then I'll respond with what your thinking was. Tyler was very studious while we played the game to take his hands off the controller so that he could make a audio note or voice. I assume it was voice to text note for himself. So which is good. It's very smart because then it helps him remember everything, and he definitely will help me remember some stuff too. But there were multiple times where we were dying because Tyler was making notes. But you know what? It's a fun part of couch co-op.
It is. It was part of the experience, Justin. I was reminding you of the glory of co-op.
It is, yeah. It was. The
nice thing about co-op is you can just yell at or elbow the person next to you, like, "Hey, what's like play?
Guys,
shut up
over here!"
Right? Yeah,
dude. In a normal instance, you're not writing notes, but you know it does happen where a person has to take a call or send a text or whatever when you're playing. But
or be at a playtest and want to maximize the amount of information you're writing down.
Yep, and you did. Boy, did you ever.
But you know what? It's amazing how much I've written down afterwards. After seeing stuff and adding to those notes.
Well, because people asked questions and there were comments made, which definitely makes sense. My overall feeling though towards it was I had so much fun playing the warrior. And I think I did get a chance to just briefly touch on that in our last episode, but it felt good. And I have to keep reminding myself, we played part of Act 1. We didn't even finish Act 1. And I still really enjoyed the gameplay feel of of the warrior. Like I love the feeling of like just being big. It looked good. It felt fun. I really, really enjoyed the skills.
Yeah, they did a very good job with the feel. We also touched on the ranger doing bow and arrow style stuff. We touched on the monk being really fast and dodging around. And then, of course, there was the witch. And every single one of them felt different.
Yeah,
it wasn't like Path of Exile 1 where the skill was the only difference. It was very much like, sure, it was the skill that you would choose that would have a big impact on it, but it really suited the environment for what you were hoping for when you pick that individual character. So when we create our character, for those that haven't seen the footage or is not watching on YouTube because YouTube sucks, audio only forever. But no, when we went to create our character, it wasn't the full character creation screen. Yes, we got to start at the very beginning of the game with a character that hasn't had any skill points allocated or gear or anything like that. So we basically got to start on the beach like you would in Path of Exile.
Can I just throw one comment into that? Will you remember this point? Because I wanted to just mention what you just said there, because I didn't show the creation, like when we actually created our character part, but a big shout out to them. And we've talked about this in the past. When you create your character, you actually get a preview now of like what type of character you're playing. So anyway, sorry, right. I didn't want to interrupt you, but that was such
because
a
all I was going to
great
say is
comment.
we didn't go through the aspect of like we got to see the character creation screen, but we didn't get to pick our, and it showed us, that same screen where it would be, which league do you want to play? But of course we didn't have options. And there weren't any game menu options. We couldn't go in and change anything like health, life bars above people or anything like that. And we couldn't pick our character name. Everybody had, as far as I know, the same just character name names, for rangers or witches. It was all the same. But one thing I noticed right off the bat was there's 6. So there's the, what's it called? Where people get hanged by the rope.
It's not the gallows?
It's not the guillotine. Sure, the gallows. There's 6 ropes on the gallows. That's interesting because there's 12 classes, but there's only 6 ropes. Now, obviously you can't, like if you had 12 people, a different
person swaps into the gallows.
It's like, no, we changed our mind. Bring this person. So it got me thinking like, okay, there's going to be 12 classes, but there's only 6 rigs, right? Like, so the witch and the sorceress are going to be the same person. So you know what I mean? And then I don't know. It just seemed like that. Like, I really hope they keep that intro.
Oh, they were. You're right. They were. Because when you picked the witch, you had the option of picking, or the girl. I don't know if it's actually called the witch. You had the choice of sorceress or witch.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So see, I like that because I love that intro. Remember the Path of Exile 1 intro where you were in the brig in the rickety ship? And they were all like,
man, I haven't seen that in forever, but yes,
but that was the best. That was the best. Like this one in front of Oriath now, it's just, it doesn't suit the game at all. Like it's not about fancy courts or halls. It's not about like, nobody cares about the judgment part of the lore. You know what I mean? Like
the whole intro is great. You jumping off the cliff and getting away.
Oh yeah, for Path of Exile too.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of feel like with any of these ARPGs, you want to feel like you've come from nothing and you are becoming better. I mean, obviously it's the game and the loot, but you want to feel like you're the hero one that's getting better.
Yeah, you're going to get
better and better. And then finally you kill whatever boss and you're like, that was all me. I just came from the gallows. Look what I've done. So Path of Exile 1 doesn't really do that anymore I'm talking the intro character creation screen, right? Oriath and all that kind of thing. And then you hear whatever his name is, judgment upon you for how stupid and lame you are. I love the Path of Exile 2 one, starting with the gallows. Everyone else dies, right? Like we've seen it 100 times. You jump off the cliff where you're supposed to die, but obviously you don't. One thing that I loved, because Justin was first player, I was second player. He was Mario, I'm Luigi. Nothing's changed in 30 years. And that's okay. That's okay, because the people that never owned a Nintendo's, they would only play going to someone else's house, and they were always Luigi, because the person who owns the console always, they know how to go through the menu, set things up, and it's about maximizing your playtime.
That's funny.
I'm used to the Luigi, but I love that I still was Luigi. And it's funny because, and it'll obviously change. Like, this isn't the criticism to glitches. We know it's a play test. We know that they have a long ways to go. But on a side note, if they were to release the game today,
it'd be fine.
It would be better than Path of Exile 1.
Yeah, their beta would go just fine.
Everything about it. Like include all the glitches.
They just need content.
And
they just need the characters. They're good.
Right. It is vastly superior to the Path of Exile 1 experience. So, but it was funny because as we select our characters, right? And then the planks drop. Everybody's supposed to get hanged. The 2 characters we've selected, the rope breaks on those, and then we scoot under the boards, and then we jump over the rock wall at the end, and we're jumping down this big like castle wall on the edge of some cliffs with big waves at the bottom.
We didn't even look.
Justin,
we just jumped.
We don't. We're going. You're either dying by the rope or you're dying by the rocks, or you make it into the water. So anyway, Justin's a marauder. He gets it. He's first player, so he jumps over first.
When we switched to the marauder, when I switched to the warrior, this is what you're talking about. Because in the beginning, when I picked the monk, it worked fine. But it was when we restarted.
I think it was both. First player gets into the water safely, and then as second player's getting to the wall, it cuts to a loading screen. I'm like, oh,
we got to see your character jump in the first one with the monk, and I think that will be in our footage. But when we went back, and I was like, I'm not feeling the monk. I really feel like I should have picked the warrior. I went monk because they said there were a bunch of changes, but it's just currently for me, it's too high brain. I wanted to play something just like, me smash. And so when we switched over to that and Tyler picked his current existing witch that was there, for some reason, when the character selection went to jump over the wall, my guy went and Tyler's witch was nowhere.
I got left hanging from behind. Justin's like, see ya.
Yeah. And Tyler's reaction was almost exactly like that. Aw.
It was. I want to jump too. So, but it was phenomenal. Like right off the bat, we start noticing all the little details that of course are new to us, and so they're going to be extremely exciting, but the thoughtfulness that's already gone into the game. And one thing, as you start hearing people's opinions, even if they for some reason are talking about some of the glitches or things that they wish were different with all the other content creators, remember we're 6 months now, thanks to Trevor, who said that they're aiming for a November beta. And even if that's 6 months, like you're 6 months to a beta, then you're 6 months to a release probably. So you're still looking at 12. There's so much that can change, so many new things. So just keep in mind, like, this is the worst it's going to be.
And it's amazing.
And everything that they've done, like one thing that the video that was released before we went to LA, and then our experience with gameplay in LA, and then speaking with the developers there, they're not bringing any Path of Exile 1 mentality into Path of Exile 2. It really is. It's like completely different people are making the game. You know what I mean? Like we're used to this, and now I'm still catching up on older episodes, so I'm still 2 episodes behind. But I just heard myself saying in the Cross Everything episode, no, I forgot what I said. Now it's gone. But the mentality of kind of like shoulder shrugging towards the user. You know what I mean? That I feel like that's what Path of Exile 1 is. It's a whole bunch of, we would love to, but we just aren't the best at time management with Path of Exile 1, and it's just never going to happen, and users are an afterthought. That's just how I feel Path of Exile 1 is. I obviously still enjoy the game, but that's how I feel it is. And Path of Exile 2, it's all user.
Yeah, it does
it's
feel like that.
All we've heard about is gameplay changes, but it really did feel like it was users number one, gameplay's, well, I guess tied for first, because you have to, gameplay is thinking of the user, and then everything else, like it really is such a user first game.
It does definitely feel like they made the conscious effort to think, does this work well for the player, the new player, the existing player, whatever it is. It did feel good. And Tyler and I spent a lot of time just looking at like the UI, the menus, the different parts of it. I saw a funny comment in the one that we released that was just the gameplay footage where somebody was like, oh, you guys are idiots. You spent 90% of the time in menus. I was like, and
right?
I was so curious about
where this isn't important.
Skill tree, the character screen, the stat screen. We were in all of that stuff. We did not get far. If you wanted to watch people fight the Act 2 bosses, wrong place.
See if Noogie or
you gotta talk to the people beside us.
Who's the speeder that was right beside him?
Yeah, I talked to those guys.
Check out. Yeah, they were flying. I think we mentioned last week, even after they finished transferring all their data to the data stick, they sat back down and kept wanting to progress to see how far they can get. Like,
we're not the ones to watch.
Go to their channels and check their stuff out.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed that. I really liked looking at the skill tree. looking at the character screen, the defense screen, the stat screen, the info screen, the screens for the skills, the supports, like it was all a new experience, but with a history of playing the game since 2013, like, I don't know, it was such a cool feeling to get to actually look into some of that stuff. So yeah, if you're listening to this on YouTube right now and you haven't watched the previous one, yeah, you're going to see some menus. You're going to see some non-gameplay related stuff. My favorite comment, though, was, why is the witch suicidal?
So you have to remember,
my favorite.
It is good, and it's tough to criticize. I mean, they're probably being. I didn't see the name associated.
I took it as
so
like
maybe they're
funny,
regular,
but maybe they were being a turd. If they were being a turd, then screw you. It wasn't funny at all.
Yeah, it was kind of funny though, because like you got to remember, I still deal with concussion stuff, and GGG still there's just no concept of warning people that are photosensitive or prone to seizures. Oh, was it flashy? And it required a lot more mental energy for me than normal gameplay, because normal gameplay in Path of Exile 1, I know it all. I'm familiar with all of it. There's very little that's new. And so it's just all about making sure I have enough energy to focus for a little bit and be reactionary to movement and or flasks. Path of Exile 2, it's all new. Everything's new. So I'm already draining all my energy with menus and learning and checking. And, I want to make sure I take these notes for the feedback that they're going to ask us for. And then there's like new gameplay, and then there's new ways to look at, not necessarily new ways to look at the map, but you're not sure if the mapping from the mini map to what's actually in front of you is the same or not. So it's just all of it's new. But then there's even that extra added, and it was for me a lot of extra focus, because in co-op, so normally in gameplay, sure, it's easy to lose your character in Path of Exile 1, but you're always in the center of the screen, or like you're always in the same spot of the screen. You're never in a different spot of the screen. And yes, sure, it's easy to lose your character in some situations, but
you know they're there.
You know the general square inch or square 2 inches of the screen that you need to look at to try and find where you are. And in co-op, it's not like that, because the screen is accommodating. You can be anywhere on the screen. And one thing that they will improve, but visual clarity was absolute. Yeah,
we mentioned that last
garbage.
Week.
Like we're talking, I mean, you're always going to want hordes of enemies in Path of Exile. So it's not necessarily about the hordes of enemies.
No, it's just the visual.
Like things like some of those things, like the trees and things that are in front of you, they did such a good job. All of that stuff, except for one instance, that would probably be fixed. It just disappeared in front of you. It was all about the visual clarity. It was really good. But in terms of co-op specific stuff, like, you know, those like colored rings they put around characters so you can see, you're the orange player. Oh, you're the blue player. Oh, you're the green player. Those weren't bright enough. And they were very dull. Stuff. And they weren't prioritized in the layering of how gameplay visuals work. And so trying to find your character when you couldn't just look in the middle of the screen
really hard
it was exhausting. And then everything's like bright and doing this and doing that. And so with all of that, especially as the day got on, like I think our last hour and a half, he was
gonna fall asleep in the last bit.
I was like, it's one of those things where you're trying to finish a movie and my head's like falling and sagging, and you're like, oh shoot, I got to rewind the movie again, but I can't do that in a video.
It's also a good reason we didn't use our own footage and instead used tries last week, because our footage of us playing the monk and ranger was just a lot of rezzing. Because
that's all it was. I kept falling asleep. I kept like running against rocks and staying there because my eyes were accidentally closed. And it was just pure exhaustion. So
when I rewatched our own footage, I couldn't still tell where my character was quite often.
You know what?
It is really hard to see where your character is.
I noticed that as well. And it was a boss fight where there weren't any ads. It was like there's lots of tangled vines and stuff. The boss was purple, I forget. And I'm like, where am I?
Right.
I can't see like that. I think that's Justin. Wait,
like
which color was I?
Bars will make a difference, but I hope they put some big focus on the visual clarity for your own character. It's not like the visual clarity when it came to skills and mobs was what was bad. It was just that you got lost in the mix very, very often. Yeah. And especially like Tyler said, when you're not center of the screen, I said this last week too, I was rolling to try and figure out where I was. Like, where's the big guy rolling around on the screen?
That's right. So, now, actually, I mean, I'd love to get into all of that. So I ran into, and so for people, Justin and I aren't big into, not like we're not bigger now. We just don't really get around to watching other content creators, whether they're Path of Exile specific or not. And so I don't remember what I mentioned last week, but I introduced myself to a couple that I saw sitting there, and they were part of the experience.
People you said, right? Last
right.
week?
Okay. Did I talk about them? Okay. So their names were Jimmy and Flutin, and they were hanging out at the bar together. And so I introduced myself and we talked for a little bit. And one thing that Flutin mentioned was dodge roll. She just loves dodge roll. If dodge roll's in a game, she loves it. And it got me thinking, like, in our experience, I almost never dodge rolled in Path of Exile 2 because
really
in the Path of Exile 2 demo, I almost never dodge rolled. I never thought of it, ever thought of it.
Oh, interesting.
And so I quite a few times, I don't know if it's on our video or not, but I would reorganize my buttons so that dodge roll was like a very prominent button for me. So that I would always like
to do it.
Hey, you know, just something. So I was just constantly trying to dodge roll. And it was really cool to use it as a normal method of. And so thank you, Flutin, for the reminder, because it was a very different Path of Exile experience in that regard, because I didn't need that movement skill that people are like, oh, what are you going to do about movement skills? It just really was what you needed to escape. So currently, the dodge roll is really fast at the beginning and then it's slower at the end. So it's not like a dash where it's like, boo, and you're done, boo, and you're done. They have to penalize you a little bit so it's not just this perfect, you don't need any defense kind of skill. So there is a part of it that needs to be slower, but it's the end part of the roll.
It's mainly
the beginning
part
danger. Is almost like a large leap or a dash, and it happens quickly, and it's like the last half of your roll that's slow. So it was perfect for getting out of danger, but you couldn't use it to go danger, bye, bye. Right. There was still that little bit of slowness at the end of your roll. Now, this is old news. Who knows if it's still relevant? But Mark or Rory, in one of their older interviews, said that there's going to be the possibility of investing in your dodge roll so that it can be improved or better skills, the meta gems, trigger gems like trigger on dodge roll, stuff like that. So, but I did find it, once I remembered about it, to be extremely helpful because I was dying just by moving slowly out of the way because of my Path of Exile 1 history.
Just walking, and I was like, it's going to hit him. And sure enough, it would.
And then you hear the witch go, and then you're
I never heard it until I rewatched it. They also did actually a really good job of teaching the player to use dodge roll. And I think we may have missed it just because we were in the moment. We were having a good time. Maybe it'll be a little bit better in single player than it was in co-op, but I noticed when I rewatched the footage that the very first boss you fight in the very, very, very first area, it's a dodging tutorial. It literally comes up to teach you to hit the button to dodge. And this particular boss does a charge, and you're meant to learn to dodge out of the way of his charge. So, and if you watch the footage too, I don't know, nobody ever mentioned anything, but there was a part in that fight where we were purposefully dying. That was on purpose. We wanted to test, how does dying work? How does rezzing work? What happens if this person dies? I realized that when we put it out there without any context as our first thing out of it, people are like,
you guys are pathetic losers.
Yeah, there was a reason behind it. We wanted to see what would happen when you die. And it was actually very good.
Even the looting experience was interesting. For Justin, it was a lot newer to loot with a pickup button and the right analog stick. For those that don't play controller, it's relatively the same that it currently is, but currently with controller, I'm standing in the middle of a pile of loot, and you know how GGG piles their loot. Well, it's the same thing, and you flick the right analog stick up or down to change what you're currently highlighting, and then you hit the pickup button to, well, of course, pick it up. And so it was a very good visual indicator for we could pick stuff up at the same time.
Yes, but I didn't know which one was mine.
Well,
quite often.
But that comes with the same complaint of just those circles of, hey, I'm orange, hey, I'm blue, needing to be bigger. They make that bigger. They do the same thing with that on the loot. And so they just had whichever color you were over your, in this case, the X button was to pick up your loot. And so there'd just be this circle around the X that was your affiliated color, and you would go for it. And so it was really neat. And it was fun right off the bat because we were going through and we're like, oh, shoot. Yeah, no, just that nice couch co-op experience. Oh, no, I got the last life flask. You go ahead and get that one. And oh, no, you're looking for quarterstaffs. Like Justin as the monk, he couldn't find a quarterstaff to save his life.
When we were going through.
Well, that's right. And it was funny because like lots of axes are dropping, but they didn't even have any axe skills available.
Which I didn't find out till I invested.
Right. So, you spend 20 minutes kind of doing that. So that is some of our gameplay, but it was fun to like, Justin's like, oh yeah, if you see a quarterstaff, let me know. And it's like, okay, cool. And then we're both trying to find like anytime boots dropped, we're like, yoink, doesn't matter what it is.
Does that movement?
Right. No, that was one thing where we're selfish about. We're going through and it's like, does that movement? Does not have movement?
Did you notice that stuff was actually dropping? It was actually dropping associated to a player until a timer went off and then it was available to everyone. We were talking about that while we were playing, but it was actually on. There was party drops where it's the, whatever that term is called that they use, where it's, what's the word that they use in PoE where you can determine how long it has before it opens up to everybody, where it's just whatever. It was dropping like that. So stuff was dropping particular to a person and you would have to wait a few seconds, but you didn't know who it was looted to. Like right now it goes like when you're playing on separate screens, it's just grayed out a little bit. Obviously you can't do that when you're playing in co-op on the same screen, but yeah, it was fun. Like learning the loot thing for me took a little bit. It took me forever. And I don't think I ever fully grasped which X was mine to press. I could not see the color well enough, but it was fine once I learned how. And Tyler's, you'll see that in the video too. There's a couple spots where we just have the menu up and all you see is the selected box just jumping to the right, jumping bottom right, jumping bottom left. And Tyler's teaching me how you can use the controller to fast move stuff around. Yeah, so
very.
Are you wrecking stuff there?
Well, I can't
Tyler's
tell
mic's
if I'm
about to fall off or something. I don't know what he's doing.
I can't tell if I'm. I can't tell which direction I'm going. Well, because, people say lefty loosey, righty tighty. And I'm like, well, is that the top going left or the bottom going left? I'm like, come on, you're missing about important detail here. So I'm trying to fix my mic.
Yeah, I love the things where they have arrows on them where it's like tight. Yeah, put it on everything.
Right.
Come on.
Everybody needs to do the medical container thing. Yeah. So, but the gameplay itself was just such a phenomenal feel. And it was an enjoyable experience. It's not like you're starting. So again, one of the most important things when you're seeing any Path of Exile 2 footage from this point forward, you have to remember it's not Path of Exile 1. That it really is the most important thing to remember. It is the only way that you'll see it for what it is, because it was an enjoyable, no matter what skill it was. It doesn't matter if it, like, people are talking about, oh, wow, melee. Like, it didn't matter if it was melee. It didn't matter if you were casting. It didn't matter in my case if I was minions. It all felt really good. It really did. And one really interesting thing for returning Path of Exile 1 players is the new implicit system, which isn't really an implicit system anymore. It's a skill system. Your default skill that you get with said weapon,
which
is
isn't
a
all
legit
weapons,
skill.
But yes.
Pardon me?
It's not on all weapons, but yes. Like
Did you find a weapon that didn't have a skill?
All of the two-handeds didn't have a skill.
Interesting, because every single wand had
and
a
in
skill.
Fact, the one-handed didn't either, except the shields. The shields for the melee side were the ones that had a block, but the two-handed weapons that I found, none of them had an actual skill associated to them.
Interesting. But those skills are legit skills. Like, they're not. It's not like using the default attack, which, I mean, I don't even know who uses that in Path of Exile 1. It's nothing like that. It's a legitimate skill that you use. So I can talk about it, So I get skeletons right off the bat. And skeletons, for those that haven't seen any videos, are completely new. Minions are so... Seriously, Justin, I feel like Jonathan read my Reddit post and like printed it out and put it on his wall. I don't know if you remember the big like minion response that I did, but I really feel like it got printed out and put somewhere, because there's so much ease to the new minion experience.
Oh yeah.
Like almost every single minion auto reses. One thing in one of the videos that showed up once that GGG put out is that they talked about specters. Now maybe we could have gotten to specters if we got to Act 2.
Further along, sure.
But like skeletons, they auto res now. That's just an innate part of the skill. And so I'll get skeletons level 1 on an item. And so now I have level 1 skeletons. If I want to improve that skill, right? So I'm talking the implicit skill, of skeletons. Right. I need to find a wand or scepter, scepter, I think it is, that has a level 2 skeletons. I can't improve. That's not a skill gem that I can improve. That improves with whatever item I find based on item level or drop rate, or just item level. But I can, and I naturally get 3 skeletons. which is really, really cool. But then it comes with some kind of default skeletons as well that you can use. And so I can choose, instead of just having normal skeletons that run, and then when they die, there's a 4-second timer and they're auto-resed, which is fantastic. It's like that for almost any minion. I can choose to have, so I selected instead to have they're like a fire bomber or something like that.
Right.
And so then I would have 2 skeletons, and then I would have one of the unique ones where they would just throw a fire bomb and it would have an AoE. Right. But as soon as I went away from the default skeletons, that unique one that threw fire, now it uses spirit. And it's neat because the skill itself comes with the innate resource that I need, so to speak. So Justin, as a warrior, you look at his gameplay, he does not have spirit at all. There's nothing even on his HUD. For me, it's just above mana. It's this really small sliver of beige quarters. I mean, they're lines, but it's separated into four quarters. And that's your spirit bar. And I actually like how that is, and it's not intrusive. You don't have to stare at it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, do I have enough spirit? Okay, sweep. Gone. Let's go.
In single player too, it's much bigger, and it's not split into 4. It's like the leveling bar, how it just gets much bigger. More
nice
splits.
Well, I'll have to kick you out and try it out. So it was neat because the skeletons comes on a scepter, but the scepter comes automatically with 100 spirit. So as you start, so at level 1, yes, I have 3 skeletons. If I want to have a fancy skeleton, okay, well, now I have 2 skeletons and one of the fancy skeletons available. I have 100 spirit, but that first skeleton costs maybe 94 spirit. So just naturally, the game doesn't allow me to be overpowered as a minion character, right? It's limiting in that way. And the game wouldn't let me, I don't know if this is going to change, but the game wouldn't let me equip 2 scepters to get 200 spirit.
Yeah.
It would only let me have 1.
But I also want to say, with regards to him picking that one too, it was awesome because there was a whole menu around how does he want to pick which type of skeleton, and that's it. He's never casting it again. He's never doing anything.
Right.
It's just if it
dies in a boss fight 4 seconds later.
The cool thing with that 4-second res too is they decided they didn't want to go the route of having multiple minions coming up at different times because they would just keep dying. So that 4 seconds is based on when does the first minion die? 4-second timer starts. When the 4-second timer ends, any minions that died between that time, they all res. And I love that because then you don't just have constantly get these like popcorn minions that are just dying over and over because they're not coming out strong enough. So I think that's a really smart decision.
It was. But again, that's another one of those things where yes, gameplay is prioritized, but that's a user first choice.
Totally.
Really, really good. And so that was really cool to be able to experience that right away. And then there was kind of this other spell, and this is one of those drops. So they still had the kind of, it was really neat how they did it, but it was kind of like the beach as well, where all of a sudden, oh, look, a chest. And then they drop an uncut skill gem for you. And that's where you pick, I don't know, I'm still going to call them active skills, an active skill for you to choose to throw around. And so you pick and the menu shows you what it is. We didn't discover that you could actually expand upon that menu at all, which you can.
I don't really
so
believe
for
you
those,
can, but apparently you can.
Other people could, but ours was restricted.
Our game wasn't doing it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. No, but so that's nice because then it's one of those things where as a player, you can like, I know what I'm doing.
As a player that understands it. Totally.
Right. But it was a really good way for them to minimize the overwhelming experience that Path of Exile always will be for a new player. So it was neat. So I picked a skill that was included in the demo. You guys have probably all seen it. And I cast these spikes. It's like Glacial Cascade in a way. That's kind of what it looks like, a physical version. But then I have Path of Exile 1 in my head all the time, right? So it was really difficult for me to grasp the concept, and I would have to reread the skills over and over and over and over, which, not gonna lie, I absolutely loved doing because it's so friendly. All the tags they have, Justin, it was phenomenal. See, okay, so this is a part where earmuffs for people listening with their family. I just might start masturbating to this. This is insane. You have
earmuffs for everybody.
My skeletons, I could go to the skill gem, Justin, and I could ask for more information. And then I go to, it's all of a sudden it's like a different screen pops up, right? Like the skill gem screen pops up. But you know what shows up? This is kind of like exactly what my Reddit post was. I feel so I had tabs for my skeletons that explained every single one of the skills that they used. If I was using archer skeletons, it talked about projectiles, it talked about attacks. If I was using the default skeletons, it had melee tags, but it had a tab for every single one of those skills. I don't know if it's in the video or not. Every single one. If I was using the skeleton that had the firebombs, and it did fire damage, and it was an AoE. It told me if it was a spell or an attack, and that it was area of attack. And it was phenomenal to like, immediately I go back to all of my Reaper complaints in the past half year about how frustrating it is to plan around some skills that I'm guessing on the tags for a specific minion. And so it was so nice to be like, okay, you know what? I want to go with these fire AoE skeletons. These are the tags. Awesome. So then when I got so just like I was saying with just like the beach experience with Path of Exile 1, you open a chest, you get your first active skill. It's an unset skill gem. You get to pick whatever active skill you want from any class you've unlocked. I think it's based on unlocked. Things were automatically unlocked for us.
Yeah, well, that's true. Maybe, I don't know.
We had 4 classes that were unlocked for us, so who knows? But you could pick whatever, whether it was for your class or someone else's. And then later on, before you're finished that little tutorial area, you get another chest, and then you get your first uncut support gem. And so that one was really cool because when you click on the support gem, it brings you up to the support gem screen, but you get to scroll through all the skills that you currently have active, that you have socketed, and it shows you what's valid for them right off the bat. And so, yes, I have skeletons that are melee, but then I was also able to tab over to my skeletons that were throwing AoE firebombs. And one of my options was increased area of effect. And I'm like, this is just so cool. And the neat thing is I knew ahead of time that AoE would work for it because I was able to look at the tab that showed all of those unique tags associated to the skill that the minion uses. So right from that point forward, I'm like, I don't care if the game crashes every 2 seconds. This is the best, right? My pants were wet. I brought one extra pair of underwear and it probably wasn't enough.
We weren't recorded while we were there, like on video or audio or anything like that. Let me just
our faces.
Note for that. Yeah, our faces. At least that we know of. There were people with cameras running around. They were doing stuff. But if you can't tell Tyler's excitement in this recording, I can just tell you that at the moment that he realized those tabs, I got a hit and told to look at his part of the screen because of how excited he was to see these tabs. Meanwhile, I was fighting, but I did stop.
I will res you, Justin. I will res you because this is more important.
You were probably dead.
But to bring up resing was now I don't know how they're going to do it. And I actually I really trust that GGG is going to make the best for what they think the gameplay experience should be. But when we were resing each other, there was no timer. You were always right, but you were never going to permanently die.
Yes.
You were always, no matter how long it took, you were always able to be rezzed if you had the time to res the person. There was no timer where you were racing against the clock. Things were going to get more difficult. Nighttime comes and you start getting hit more and more. You know what I mean? Like there was none of that.
Could you figure out a timing to be able to get that 2 second cast off?
And if Justin killed people, I mean, if I killed people while Justin was waiting for me to res him, because that's what was happening. If you're down and you need to be rezzed, you didn't get XP for any kills.
No, but you could still be sorting through your menus and looking at your skill tree.
Oh, seriously, Justin, that's such another user first choice. I really hope some of these things last. I really do. And I really hope that like permanent option to revive, like, hang on, you just chill out. I got to deal with this quick.
Yeah,
like,
it's great.
I really hope there's no timer for the revive.
It'll be interesting to see how they do it when you're not couch co-op. Like if I'm playing with you normally, I would imagine if they have the ability for me to res you, you should also have an ability to just leave. You know what I mean? Like go back to town or something instead of waiting for me to res you if we're playing on separate machines.
Oh, you know what? I mean,
would think that's how they would do it.
If you're, I mean, there's some abuse cases there, right? Where, you know, you're in the middle of a boss battle, you go through the portal you know,
maybe
what's
you
going to happen to your
maybe you
revive.
can't come into a portal while a boss fight is active or something. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Sure. But I get what you mean.
I do think you're right though. There is that abuse factor where you could just throw up a portal. Although the fact is the cast time to cast a portal is very similar to the cast time to cast a res. So yeah, I don't know. I was going to ask you though, because you really like the theory crafting and the building of characters and stuff. From my understanding, it does sound like what we were worried about, maybe annoyed about. I'm not really sure where we kind of stood. I can't figure out even where I stand on it right now, but it does sound like supports are going to be, you can use them once across your whole character. And
right.
I'm trying to figure out.
Did we talk about that last week?
We did a little bit, but we weren't sure. But from my understanding up until this point now, because I've heard and read some more information, it does sound like it is going to be the case where if I've used increased area of effect or if I've used whatever on one of my skills, it is not going to be available to use on any other skills. I think it leads, I understand, like when we talked to Octavian about it, the idea that it does, I think that there is a benefit to it in the sense that it allows for more theory crafting, because not everybody is just going to put the same support all the time on the same skills, because you can only do it one time. You're not going to feel like you always have to have this specific, a bunch of this particular one. So I think there is a benefit to it, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because I can think of quite a few instances where I would like to have the same support on multiple skills. So
I think it's garbage. I think it's completely against what theory crafting is. Like, to me, theory crafting isn't making restrictions on theory crafting and forcing you to have variety. That's not theory crafting. Theory crafting is, I have an idea, I want to see if this works.
Well, it is kind of still theory crafting.
Well, it's theory crafting with a lot of rules. And the rules aren't, oh shoot, I can't use this skill because it doesn't match the forced weapon that I have to use with the skill that the skill requires, like, earthquake needing a club or something. It's not those kind of restrictions. It's a restriction like, you can only use this skill once. And to me, let's say I want to be like, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice damage and I just want to make a character with the biggest AoEs on the planet. Well, I can't.
Well, you don't know,
because I can only do that with one skill.
You can only do it for one skill, yes.
Right. But that's kind of the point. And I have 6 links or whatever it's going to be. Like, to me, theory crafting is, this is my idea. I want to see if my idea works. But if GGG is coming up with a whole bunch of rules with how theory crafting works, that's not my idea anymore. That's me trying to come up with an idea that fits their whole rule system. And to me, that's not what Path of Exile is. That's not why I play. Diablo's already really set up, really well set up gameplay wise. I can go play Diablo if I want a simplified experience where all my skills have to be used in certain ways and that kind of thing. Like, I can go play Diablo for that. When it comes to Path of Exile, I have endless options. I want to see if they work. Mm-hmm. And when you tell me that I can only use GMP on one skill out of my whole build, I can only use increased AoE for one thing. I can only use Feeding Frenzy for one. Feeding Frenzy is totally different. Same with Meat Shield. Those are the descriptions for those are very different. Feeding Frenzy, I forget what Feeding Frenzy was. I remember Meat Shield though. Meat Shield was take less damage, deal less damage. It had nothing to do with the aggressiveness of, as far as I remember. But either way, for me to only have Meat Shield on one, only have Feeding Frenzy, GMP, increased AoE, whatever it is, that's just, so what? I'd like a support.
I don't totally understand the reason behind it. Besides the fact that it's forcing people to use more of the supports. I'm on the fence on this one, because I don't feel like I've actually fully seen it fleshed out and played out. We didn't play long enough. We didn't play far enough. We didn't get, we've never seen end game type related stuff. So for me, it's a little hard I don't want to judge it before it comes out, because I have felt like the decisions they've made have been actually quite good. So maybe there is something that we don't fully understand with it, but it is a weird decision to me.
The general idea to me conflicts with freedom. You're restricting the user more, which is not what Path of Exile is. If you are nervous that a certain skill is going to be used all the time, fix the skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it actually rolls out. But right. I just found that interesting.
What support was it that we took half an hour trying to figure out why you could?
Fist of War.
Fist of War you were trying to
I
add.
had to take that footage out because I realized how long it was, and we were talking to Octavian, and I was trying to figure it out. I took that whole part out of our recording.
It was probably like 30 minutes of our session where you're trying to add
we
a
did
support
stop
gem.
and I
we
keep
couldn't
playing,
figure it
but
out.
I was always talking about it as we were playing. Like, I don't get it. What am I doing wrong with this? So
right, and then you
I
go
did take
back
that
into the
part all
menu,
out.
try it out, then we kill another 30
And then I
enemies, and
showed
you go back
Tyler, I'm
in the
like,
menu.
look, I'm hitting the button.
That's right. And we know it's glitchy, so we got to like, okay, are we
Am I doing something
doing it
wrong
wrong?
here?
So then we eventually called someone over. It ended up
Because
being
I'd never
Octavian.
heard up until that point that you could only use the supports once. That was the first time we had heard about it. So,
hey, who told me fuck you?
What?
Who was it? Remember when I was trying to figure out my food?
Oh yeah,
He's
one
like,
of the
hey, you
working
know what,
guys.
Tyler? Fuck you.
I told him to though.
Yeah, I know, but what's his
He's
name?
not a GG person. He was a marketing
Are
person.
you sure?
Yeah, he worked with a marketing company they had hired.
Nah.
Yeah, I talked to him.
Dominic?
No, I talked to him. He wasn't a GGG employee. I think he worked for the marketing company. But
Well,
he was
whoever
awesome.
told me to F off, I like you.
I told him to. So Tyler was doing his lunch stuff, and this guy was being so kind. He was being like Tyler. It was annoying. Like the two of them were just like gushing over each other. Oh, thank you. Oh no, you sorry. I'm sorry. And I was like, just tell him what you want to say. And he laughed. He's like, fuck you. I was like, there you go. He's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm just joking. It was funny.
That was good. Anyway, Justin.
What else we got?
No, it's just like we just had such a really good time going through the menus. Obviously, the game wasn't fleshed out, and we didn't have every option
I
available
would play
to
it
us.
right now over PoE 1.
In a heartbeat, even with the unfinished
Even
tree.
just
The
two acts.
most amazing thing, though, was that we had full access to the full tree. And I loved that. Yes, the tree was unfinished, but we had full access. We could check out what.
Well, I'm just gonna say they should have told us at the very, very, very beginning that we should not try to put the tree footage into recorded stuff, because that came in about 30 minutes in. Octavian's like, oh, we forgot to say the tree's not totally finished. Please try to keep it out.
You won't be
Which we
allowed
did.
to show notables that aren't completed yet, stuff like that.
Which I took all of ours out.
But it was so neat because it was such, again, it's another thoughtful experience where as I'm leveling, so every character, so now it's kind of confirmed, unless of course they change it, but every character starts in the middle of the passive tree. And every character, I didn't count how many, but there's like 4, 6, 8, whatever starting places for each character in the tree.
Oh.
And then each of those starting places has 2 trees. So right now, let's say you're starting a shadow, you can start, going on one path or another path from the shadow. Well, when you're starting in the middle, just like the scion, there's a whole bunch of different dual paths that you can choose to start on.
Did you know those are different based on
which class you start as?
So like the witch and sorceress start in the same spot, like maybe it's top right or to whatever, to the circle, but their options at the beginning are different.
I heard that, but I didn't notice that because I just played the witch the whole time.
But your witch options right off the bat had minion options, whereas the sorceress has damage and like other options. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool. I guess it would be relevant options, and I'm sure it's probably just for the initial travel.
It's just the very
nodes,
beginning part,
because I'm sure all the clusters are the same for each person. It was really cool to go through and just see the different shape of the tree and the different clusters that there are. I mean, right off the bat, I'm like, I need more skeletons. I need more skeletons. I need more spirit. And I was frustrated that I couldn't hold 2 scepters. So I'm like, where's the spirit? Where's the spirit? Where's the spirit? So I spent 20 minutes in the
that reminded me
trying
of
to
the
find
original
spirit.
PoE experience for me. There was no POB. There was no online thing that I could track and map out the direction I wanted to go. It was really fun to pull the map. I mean, I did take it out because I knew they wanted me to, and they did ask for one particular part. I did zoom out and show the whole tree, and then I circled around it. I did take that out because I was just like, holy shit, it's so big. But I loved just like looking in my area and going, well, I want to stun. Where do I go? And I was just building my tree as I went. It was something really good about that. Like nowadays, it's not like that. You plan it all out before you start. You've got the direction you're going to go. You know exactly. There was something very fun about just being completely blind.
Yeah.
And just winging it and figuring out as you go. And then there wasn't a huge penalty to it because as long as you had gold, you could respec the points back. Like there was a cost to it, but nothing like PoE 1 cost, like finding regrets. So it felt a little more freeing to mess up.
The items that we would save for that cost gold from a vendor would be anywhere from like, and again, values can change, right? But they were from like 1,500 to 2,700 gold. Respecking your first point probably cost more for the second point was, it was relatively low. But you're saving for something. And there was times where Justin was like scared he was going to level because he's like, oh, I really want this weapon. Oh, it has +1 to melee skills. Oh, and it has a decent damage. Like it was a really good magic item that this vendor had. And we have Path of Exile 1 in our head. We don't know when these items reset. So we're like, am I allowed to level? Am I not allowed to level? So he was really nervous about getting it. Right. We were selling everything. We were sharing our gold.
Yeah.
And so he would buy it. So, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I actually really want to buy this from a vendor, or I could respec. But the respec price was enough where you were like, do I want to? Obviously, gold's going to become an irrelevant source over time. You're going to naturally pick it up, and all of a sudden you're going to have way too much, and that's fine. But as part of the leveling experience, 1 year away from release, I really enjoyed the weight of the decision because I wanted to go straight to spirit and I wanted to respec, but I'm like, oh, I don't have a lot of gold and I didn't want to respec. I wanted to, but I didn't because of the cost, but it wasn't too much. It was a really good balance. I enjoyed it.
Are we working through your notes here? Because I got the auto aiming versus right analog.
Well, there were some things that people asked us, some of our community members wanted to talk about, so I'm happy to go through those. First, though, I would like to talk, shout out Trash Pockets on Reddit.
That was the thing, the note I added, I think.
I absolutely love it. So, right, like we overall, there's positive feedback for everything we do, and we're so thankful for it, and we couldn't thank you enough. But there's, it's the internet, it's the Reddits, and so there's a couple douchebags being douchebags.
Always.
And
they're listening. We know you're listening.
Yeah. You're like one click away from the patron button. But Trash Pockets responds with, fuck this guy. I've listened to your podcast for years and always look forward to it.
Love you, Trash.
Thanks, Trash Pockets. You rock.
Now back to aiming versus auto aiming.
Well, that one wasn't going to fit in anywhere.
It was awesome. I loved it. I loved the comment. I remember copying and pasting it because I was like, yep, this guy's awesome. The aiming I thought was actually great. Somebody did ask, I noticed some comments about it too, like how was aiming versus auto aiming versus right analog aiming. I didn't even really realize how little I was using the right analog to aim until I played the Ranger, which we don't have the footage for that, but as the warrior, it felt great. I never felt like I was swinging a miss. The only thing that I should have tested it with was I found the placement of the totem really bizarre. It never made sense to me where it was placing the totem when I was using the totem. Man, what is it called? It looked amazing, but it was basically just, it did a big thump and damage around it, but you could also pair it with supports that would tie into Earthquake to have the jagged ground, which was doing damage, that you could tie it into pinning. So there were a lot of other things, but it just amplified your damage. So I was always placing it around bosses.
So for people that are like so stuck in PoE 1 and no blame, that's the only game, you can reference. Melee is totally different. And the one thing that they really want to get away from is how the ancestor totems work, all that bonus damage, the requirement of those totems. So totems, when you hear Justin talk about his melee experience with totems, it just completely separate the Path of Exile 1 experience. It was just a fantastic optional support that enhances experience. And the further we played, the more options he had to replace the totem with something else that was just as relevant.
Yeah, but I love that. That was like one of the first things I went for. I loved it. I loved the just amplifying my damage, and then the supports that came with it. That's where I put the Fist of War, which then gave me a ancestral buff, which was buffing my damage, and also it just looks so freaking cool. But the fact is, the auto aiming was incredible, and I was even showing Tyler. I think it might be in the footage. If you see this weird time where my guy just starts jumping around, it's because I'm showing Tyler that the main skill I was using, which was this double. So he would slam the ground and then he would flip into another one. It was one of my favorite skills. You'll see me using it all the time. But even just using the left analog, which is my directional one, I could be moving left. And as I'm doing the animation to the left, turn my analog to the right, and he would finish the animation off to the right. I never touched the right analog to do that. That was all just me using the left to aim towards where I wanted to go. So I felt like it was awesome. I never felt like I was just swinging a miss into thin air. It really felt like they nailed down the auto aim. With the Ranger was when I did switch to using the right analog, because quite often it seems to just target the closest enemy. And in some cases where we're maybe fighting a boss or a stronger rare, I didn't want it to target a random minion that was maybe just to my right versus the boss that was down to the bottom left or something. So that's when I was using the right analog. But it felt really, really good on controller. Like, I can't believe how much I loved it on controller, because I will be at this point playing PoE 2 on controller. I cannot see myself doing the keyboard and mouse with that many buttons plus WASD. I was talking with Havoc when we were there about how, you know, what's the process, and he was joking about the fact that you literally have to buy one of those, you know, Razer mice that has like 12 buttons, which I used to have. It's like,
oh, Justin's reaching into his office. He's going into the dusty pile.
It's like this. So like,
yeah,
there's like 12 buttons on the side of it. That I don't want to,
which you totally anymore. Have always used legitimately.
I've never used it badly, but you're allowed to use it, but I don't want to. I don't want to have to.
I know. It's
exhausting to like have to move your thumb all the time. I just couldn't believe how smooth it felt on the controller. And even the swapping of like hold down left trigger to get your new skills. I don't know. It felt good. The only problem I had with that sometimes was that some things weren't automatic actions. So the totem, for example, or my war cry, for example, you have to make sure you hold it down long enough. So it's not like just left trigger tap and then you could go back to your attacks. You had to make sure you held it down until you actually, you know, got the thing off. But in general, man, it felt so good on controller and the auto aiming.
I'm glad that it did, because I remember your thankfulness when we were originally invited, but how hilarious it was for you that you were invited to a console experience. So I'm so glad that it actually was such an enjoyable experience for you.
Yeah, when we first got the invite, I was like, really? Did you mean to send this to me?
Yeah, did you? Is this the wrong? So yeah, and it was neat. And me as the witch, so I was playing with skeletons that auto res, and then there was the skill that I would use. I don't think I finished it, but
witch.
Right, that's ridiculous. Right. No, dude, I got the witch, but not only did I get witch, I got necromancer, basically. Minions. I got controller, I got everything that I do, I got to play.
Yeah, it was
but then
cool.
They made it in a way that I love, like minions auto res. If you don't need a corpse, it auto reses. But another really neat thing, and this is something that was discovered after the fact, or just we didn't progress far enough, is specters. They showed a specter in one of their videos.
Oh, cool.
This magic enemy actually is a really tough enemy. Okay, he's finally died. All right, let's use him in our build. And they allocate that base type to the skill gem. And from that point forward, that specter skill gem is always that base type. It cannot be replaced. If you want a different kind of spectre, you use a different. Yeah, that's right. You have to get another uncut gem. The really cool thing, Justin, is that spectre auto reses like skeletons.
Oh, get out! Really?
It is,
but it's on its own timer, I imagine. Like it doesn't share the force.
You know what? I don't know if there's a global auto res timer or if it's individual to skills.
Yeah.
But that to me, just that fixes the entire spectre problem.
Totally. Take your helmet off and you're fucked.
Right. And Justin and I were talking about, there were so many uncut gems that dropped.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could change that drop rate at any time, but the attitude that Justin and I had was, I would much rather have way too many than way too little. Mm-hmm. Give me the options to change my mind more than making me terrified because of just the kind of game that Path of Exile is and the incessant amount of options that there are.
Totally.
But the nice thing is if you know what you're doing, right? Like after the game's been out for a tiny bit, you know exactly what you want. Okay, you've picked up or you have too many uncut gems, you can just sell them for gold anyway. Mm-hmm. Like it's not a big deal. And so it was a really fun experience. So there was another skill. I think I mentioned the Glacial Cascade minion skill that I had, but I didn't finish it. The Glacial Cascade skill that I had, if I killed an enemy or I hit an enemy that died with, I can't remember the skill, but anyway, it created little scorpions that were like little temporary minions. And then they would run around and kill, and they had a duration. It was kind of like, I guess you could say it would be like Summon Phantasm, You know what I mean? But it came with the Glacial Cascade spell
Which did damage
at the beginning, right? I played with it for a long time, thinking about Path of Exile 1, where it's like, okay, well, obviously there's this, if I hit a rare or unique enemy, there's a 20% chance for a Scorpion to spawn. No, it was just on minion death. So in our gameplay footage, you'll see me using it all the time, this like physical Glacial Cascade, and you'll see lots of skeletons, and then all of a sudden in the boss fight, you'll see all this Glacial Cascade and no skeletons, and no scorpions. And it was funny how much Path of Exile 1 determined my Path of Exile 2 play.
Did you get all glitchy there too?
Yeah, but I don't think it impacted audio.
It didn't, but fucking Discord. Sorry, go ahead.
I know, Discord's been a pain in the butt. Discord, if you ask me for a review, I'm giving you a frowny down face.
Yeah.
That's
I hope
what
it comes up
you.
after this. Anyway, you're right. It is funny watching the footage because there was quite often, like somebody asked about it, with regards to you and controller and the one button play style. And I think I made a joke that you were definitely making the attempt to try and play the PoE one way, try and play, or maybe not the PoE one way, but just the way you enjoy playing it. Like I want to build up my army and I want to have something that's more not as clicky and whatever. I'm not sure that the witch is going to be there. Like you did seem like you got it, but when I watched the gameplay footage, I think it looked to me like when we watched their footage and they went over the witch, it seems like the witch is supposed to be a bit hybrid where it's this minion player that has this big army, but is quite often casting something else with that secondary weapon. Like whether that was a curse, they really focused on curses. And you can
definitely see that with the gameplay footage they've released for the witch itself. Mm-hmm. It's very much within that video.
Yeah.
For me, what happened after I realized that my Scorpion skill was useless against bosses. Again, remember, I don't know with only 6 hours of gameplay if my spikes are dealing a lot of damage or not, if it's worthwhile, if something like Spiritual Aid, which is always stuck in my mind, it has value. But so as soon as I realized that and there are a lot of bosses, Justin and I came across a lot of bosses or enemies that took a long time to die.
Yep.
As soon as I saw that my Scorpion skill required death and corpses, I was like, okay, let's see if I can play a different style. And so one of the other skills, and this is an innate skill that comes with just the normal, I guess you could call them implicit skeleton skills that comes with a scepter, is the ability to explode a corpse. And so I'm like, okay, well, instead of casting the skeleton Glacial Cascade thingy or the Scorpion Glacial Cascade thingy, let me see if I can just explode my skeletons. And so when they would get to low life, whatever, I don't remember if they said that was 50 or 30%. Cool. But there was a visual indicator where they were glowy. Unfortunately, one of the things and GGG warned us about this, they just didn't have the time to fix it, but the targeting
they had fixed it, but it didn't make it into this build that we got to play, is what they said at the beginning. Yeah.
So I wasn't, the targeting for corpses and minions was quite off, unfortunately. So the actual interaction that I had with it wasn't very efficient, but the idea was I was going to replace using the Scorpion Glacial Cascade caster thingy with, okay, one of my minions is low on life. Boom, let's explode them. Boom,
you don't have to resummon them.
Well, that's exactly it.
Awesome.
They auto resummon. It was really cool. So that's one thing that I tried to progress through, and that's just one button, and that was really neat. And so as I was playing through the gameplay, I don't think I ever used the right analog stick. Mm-hmm. But the really cool thing is I didn't need to.
Right.
It never crossed my mind because gameplay was just that efficient and that smart.
Yep.
And it's really neat that I didn't need to, so therefore it never came across my mind. But if I wanted it to be something where I wanted to be more specific, it's right there for me. So that was really, really cool. One thing that was really neat, GGG always does this, and I love, that's why people read so much into what they do. As Justin and I were walking into the convention, we're signing our booklets, getting our bracelets, getting permission to enter the actual room. They had a whole bunch of those cool statues and places where they would take official pictures of us and stuff.
To our Discord.
Yes, which is awesome. And I'm so glad you were so thoughtful of our Discord, because no offense to any of our listeners, but I did not think once about posting pictures to Discord. I was just like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, witches. Like as soon as they posted witches, I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done. There's nobody else in my life. Couch co-op, there was nobody beside me. It was just witches and minions and spirit. but
Thanks, Ty.
yeah, you're welcome. It was nice to be with you. But there was one
statue.
I guess you'd call them statue. I don't
Figure,
know.
whatever.
That they made. One of those big
It's
things, kind of like
huge.
Hinakora from one of their previous announcements that they made. And it was just a whole bunch of skeletons, 3 skeletons that were like impaled from the ground up. And they were lifted off the ground, and it was all nasty and disgusting and totally awesome. And so you think, okay, that's cool and nasty, and that's PoE.
That's literally
Welcome
all
to the
I
event.
thought was, oh, it's a
Right.
PoE thing. Cool.
That's bone offering.
Mhm.
That's how offering skills work. Because your skeletons auto resummon. I didn't actually come across or any variations of a skeleton that wouldn't auto resummon. That's just how skeletons
They do,
work.
yeah.
So that you could sacrifice one of, or maybe 3 of your skeletons with an offering skill,
Which looked awesome.
which you'll probably see in the gameplay footage that GGG has posted since. And the one that they had here was called bone offering. And of course, all their offering skills are different, but it's the same mentality where an offering skill is just a bonus to the minions that you have on as part of your allies. And so it was neat because it was an unannounced skill that they had as a trophy. And then they start, revealing all the different aspects of the witch.
They're
before
like,
we
don't
start
talk about the
playing.
witch. Meanwhile, I'm taking pictures. I'm like, I didn't know. I had no. Tyler showed it to
Well,
me
no, the
later. He was like,
statue's
hey, look at
legit.
the statue
The
you posted.
statue's-
I was like, uh-oh. Yeah,
That's bone offering, buddy.
Yeah.
So, but it was really neat. Like GGG always does these little things like, hey, look at this really cool grotesque statue that is totally not something else that we're going to reveal later on.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah, it
very
was fun. It was really cool. Now, one thing though that I think I should mention, because I saw you play 3 different classes. You started with the monk, then you played
Monk,
warrior,
warrior,
and then you
and
went
ranger.
ranger. And I was just witch the whole time.
And monk.
Except,
at the
no,
end.
who did I? Oh yeah, I did play monk for that
But he
hour
was
where
asleep.
that I was. Attacking while moving
Mhm.
is probably the best addition that has ever come to Path of Exile.
It's very fun. It feels good.
The ability to move while at the same time that you do any action, you're always capable of moving. You're not stuck in. I mean, sure, there are probably going to be some skills where you do come
Well, there
to
are.
a
There's
stop
some
and
where
you
you
do
have to
that, and
come to
that'll be
something
how
to
the
move it.
skill.
Mhm.
Sure, but the general gameplay is you can always move while you do something, and that's not in Path of Exile 1, because in Path of Exile 1, for the most part, it's almost always. You hit a button, your character's stopping to do something. Outside of Flask, it's like stop. And then that's, then they came out with instant skills and in Path of Exile 1. And so then that became a thing. And then, of course, then all of a sudden you have what is it? Vortex, where it's a damage dealing skill that's instant, so they've been having this funny balance in Path of Exile 1 with instant skills. But in Path of Exile 2, everything that I did, I could do while moving. And it honestly made gameplay amazing to go through and to be able to like cast and I'm moving, cast and I'm moving, cast. I see a big AoE. Like I can't tell you how incredible the boss battles are compared to Path of Exile 1. Like the boss battles are great. I don't know if they're crazy special compared to other ARPGs, but they're fantastic because you can see what's happening. They give you tells as to where the damage is coming from, where the damage is going, but it never seemed out of place or like, hey, well, look out. It was always just a legitimate part of the damage experience. And so I'm like, oh shoot, there's this big AoE coming, but I'm slowly casting as I'm moving, casting as I'm moving, casting. And I'm like, oh, can I squeak out? No, I can't. And there's my quick dodge roll. You know what I mean? But then there were times where I choose not to use the dodge roll because I'm like, yeah, I can cast a move and just make it outside that AoE. It really did. Like if you didn't have attacking while moving, and I'm using attacking in a general sense, not in the spell versus attack move terminology, but generally, if you couldn't attack and move in this game, I think it would feel exactly the same as Path of Exile 1.
I think the thing that's cool with the attack and moving is if you are the type of player who likes to play with 2 sticks, like the move and aim, some of the classes are just so well built for that. Like when I played the Ranger, it felt really good to use the right analog. The problem is when you throw in using the right analog, if you're using it on a consistent basis, then you got to come up with a clever way to map your skills because you can't hit your 4 skills very easily when you're also aiming. But trigger skills just felt really good on the Ranger. I put most of my stuff that I wanted to consistently do while I was moving on the triggers, and then I was able to aim with that, and it was fun.
Isn't that though one of the wonderful things about being able to remap your skills?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're doing a ranger and you kind of like the idea of shooting with a trigger, you can actually use on the controller a trigger to use your primary skill.
Yep.
Right. And then it's so much easier to auto aim with your right or to aim with your right, manually aim with your right analog stick. Whereas if you're a player where you don't really find the right analog stick that valuable based on the type of player that you are, you can use your primary buttons for your face buttons or your RB buttons. Like it was so nice to be able to remap anything, including your pickup button.
I think that's why
nice is. Go ahead.
Sorry, you are right. That is awesome. I think that's why I will struggle to play PoE 2 on the computer, because I love the attack while moving. And I can't see how with my fingers on W, A, S, and D, I am not 20 anymore. I'm not my World of Warcraft PvP.
You look 20, Justin. You look like a silver 20-year-old fox.
I can't move with W, A, S, and D while also managing the mouse for the direction and also managing the buttons that I would have to press. It's just, I can't do it. Like, it's just, I feel like the attack while moving is so good, but to throw that into WAS and D without getting a mouse like I showed you that's got all the buttons on it, which I'm not interested in doing. That was a WoW thing. I used to do that back in the day. I don't want to. If I can chill here and have the controller, I love PC gaming. It's better. It's faster. I have a bigger, I just like it. I do prefer playing on the PC.
Bigger GBs, Justin.
The bigger GBs. It's got the Wi-Fi's. But I do prefer on the PC. But man, the controller felt good. Like it really felt fun to play. So yeah, I don't know. I can't say enough good things about how the controller worked. I love the ability to remap stuff. I have no interest in trying PoE 1 with a controller just because being unable to remap stuff, it's just, especially now after trying PoE 2, I would probably hate it even more. So
I know
you've got like 10 minutes. Because otherwise we're going to run out of video time. So you hit your points. Let's do it. What do you got?
You can loop. I got to go to the bathroom.
I refuse.
I got to go to the bathroom.
Okay, well, that's fine.
I can't even hear you anymore. Man, I washed my hands and everything.
This time.
It's funny. I hate when you just need to do something quick, but you walk past something that really needs to be done. You're like, God dang it. Now I got that sitting in the back of my mind. The bathroom that we have downstairs that's close to where I record. I have to walk through the laundry room to get there. And I'm like, all right, shit, I gotta do laundry still. Yeah, stupid. Like all I wanted to do was go to the bathroom. Now I got to do laundry too. You can always put our picture in the back. Like once the video stops looping, just throw our picture.
Just stop. If it stops right now, boom, we're gone.
No,
it just ended. Sorry. I promise. So that's what's going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. Another question that one of our listeners had was the power level of minions and how the support gems with the highest levels worked out. So Justin and I, we only played in Act 1. We were so menu hungry that we didn't get into Act 2. So I got to so the uncut gems worked in different levels. An uncut gem would drop and it'd be an uncut gem level 1, uncut gem level 2, uncut gem level 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. We only got to level 4, which was great for me specifically because that's where zombies unlocked. Yep. Unlike PoE 1 where they unlock at level 1.
Yeah, you had to be level 12 to get zombies.
Right. And yeah, so that's right. It's not character level 4. It's uncut gem level 4. And that drops at whatever the restrictions
character level based on the skill. So it's kind of weird because you need the tier 4 uncut gem, but then you also need to be level 12 to use those skills at that tier.
Right. So that's about as far as we got, but that was what I was looking forward to. And the amount of supports available to us was great because there were so many different skills that I could pick from specifically as a minion player. And I didn't have to use with my default skill that comes with the scepter for skeletons. I didn't have to use 3 melee ones. I didn't have to use the fire option. I could use an archer skeleton. I could use a cleric, which would heal. There was a lot and the cleric wouldn't just heal skeletons. It would heal everybody. And so there were a lot of options to me just as support or active when it came to the minions that I had, including, of course, the Glacial Cascade Scorpions and other options that I ignored and didn't play. So there were a lot of options. And as I went through, I felt like I was a valid part of the gameplay for sure. The power of my minions was strong. I felt like I was relevant, even when I was trying to explode the corpses where my aiming was off because of the gameplay glitch. I still felt like it was a very relevant part. And progress was nice because all of a sudden I'm like, oh, sweet, there's a scepter with the level 2 skeleton. So then I'd swap that out and then I'd throw a transmute on it and it sucked. But I'm like, sweet, I used a transmute and I also love the skin of the transmute.
At one point we bought you something that was a +1 to minion skills as well.
Yeah. And so that it was a lot of fun to go through that. And then you get your uncut support gem and you're like, oh, do I use it on this skill, or this skill? And I don't know. It's just, it adds a little bit of finality to it until another support uncut gem drops. So the power level of the minions, I mean, up until character level 12 was legit. It was fine. The game was surprisingly so well balanced for a demo that's so far out from the release,
and with 2 players, like the way that they balanced health of enemies worked great. Like it was really fun. I think so. We only got to the point that we got to. We never saw anything. We never had the access to more than 3 sockets, so 2 supports per active skill. I know that the idea is that you'll get certain droppable items that will let you roll to increase the gems to 4, 5, 6. I love that the colors wasn't really a thing anymore. Like you didn't have to worry about the colors. They still had their strength or dex or int requirements. You have so much more control over that now with the travel nodes giving you the option of picking strength, dex, or int. Yeah.
Like it is extra thoughts. It seems kind of pointless and annoying and frivolous, but
no, it's so
the
good.
Travel nodes now, I don't remember if we mentioned this last week. So we're talking the passive tree, and the travel nodes allow you to, instead of it being a guaranteed, like I'm starting as the witch. So anyone that started as a witch knows you're just surrounded by int nodes, +10 int nodes. And those are your travel nodes until you get to a cluster and the occasional notable that's on your path. Those are you'll just naturally get your int. Well, with the current version of Path of Exile 2, it's +5 nodes, but it's any attribute you want. It's still the 3 attributes, strength, dex, and int, but you can choose any of those every time you select another travel node to go through. Sure, you still might want int, but if you're short on dex, why not? Go for it. You don't have to go traveling for your dex. Your very next level up, you can get dex. So it is only 5 as opposed to 10, but you get to pick anyone you want. And that was surprisingly really, really cool.
It felt good. I always went strength because I didn't get to the point where I needed anything different, but knowing that you can is a really good feeling. The only thing I didn't totally understand, and maybe it's just because I don't know enough, because I've not watched any of the PoE 2 content that's come out prior to this. I don't actually know what gave us those sockets. Like we had 6 different things that you could socket in. I don't know if that's just your character gets that. I don't really know what that's based on. Maybe you just always have 6 skills that you're going to be able to have regardless of what, because it wasn't related to gear you had on, because we had those full access even with like naked characters at the beginning. So maybe that's just your character has these 6 slots, just you do what you want with those 6 slots. But it felt good.
It did. Our gameplay didn't really introduce us to that. And that kind of goes into the next question that our community asks. Do gems get more links available as they level, or have they not been confirmed yet? And Justin and I didn't get far enough to get into links. We were in Act 1. Honestly, even Act 2
sockets,
probably wouldn't
links,
do too much. Right. In this game, that's right. Links and sockets are the same thing. There's no unlinked sockets in Path of Exile 2 unless something changes. But the idea is that if you have an item with 4 sockets, it's
a
linked.
skill with 4 sockets. It's not an item anymore. It's the skill itself that has the sockets.
No.
So yeah, if you pull off the socket, if you pull this active skill out, you take all the supports with it.
Right.
You put a new one in. So it's the actual skill that's getting the sockets that you're adding to. And my understanding is there's items as you play through the game that will let you deterministically add a 4th socket to this skill or whatever it is. So we never got that far though. We never saw any of that stuff. So I don't know. Maybe other people did. I don't know if it's actually in the game yet. I'm not sure, but it does not. Your level of the skill does not have any effect on how many sockets you get.
Right. Yeah.
But we didn't get that far. We were too busy having fun.
It was a lot of fun. I think it was a lot of fun to go to this event. And again, thank you, GGG, for the invitation. It was
more
really
fun than
cool
I thought I was going to have. for sure. I wasn't.
Awesome.
I was expecting a fun time to go with you, but I didn't have very high expectations. But I had a very, very good time.
Yeah, and it was Justin and I played the way that we wanted to. Just as nerds that were fans of the game, it wasn't about
It was literally like
maximizing
we
content.
used to play couch co-op games. It was so much fun.
So yeah, that's why we didn't get out of Act 1. It was like, Justin, look at the menu system. Justin, look at this. Justin, look at that. Justin, look at that. It was phenomenal.
It was awesome.
It was
So
really
good.
cool. And there were times where, I would be like, okay, Justin, I need to make a couple notes. Drag me, see how it works.
And I
so
needed to go
then-
for walks quite often for my back. Like there were quite often times where we were dragging each other around, or we both would just go. I was going to get a cookie. Tyler was going to get some coffee. And then when you're walking around, you start talking with people. So some people took it very like game serious. I'm going to just game the whole 7 hours. That was not us. I knew I was not going to be able to sit there for 7 or 8 hours.
Every time I got up, I went for another cup of coffee. And you know what coffee does?
Yeah, another.
So that
bathroom
means
break.
every time I went up to get a cup of coffee, first I would go to the bathroom and then
And
I'd
the
come back and
bathroom
get a
was
cup
far.
of coffee. It was, and I
far.
kept going.
And then you
I
walk
can't
past
tell you.
people every single time.
Half the people that I met were right in the urinal next to me.
That's how I met Havoc. Was in the
That's
bathroom.
right. Hey,
We just
I
got
like
talking.
your dick.
We just got chatting after we walked out of the
Yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah, that's right. So no, but it was a really good time. I loved how casual they made the experience as
So
well. It made
fun.
you feel like you could do whatever you wanted. And I know we said this last week. I'm so surprised how thankful they were for us,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like just professionally thankful. They
Mhm.
seemed legitimately thankful, like we did them a big favor.
Yeah.
I know
Every
that's not
time
like
we would say
us.
thank you,
It
we
was
got one back,
everybody.
and we were like, "No."
That's not how this works.
Uh-huh.
What else? I did get to actually play zombies.
Mhm.
One of the questions for us
That's what we
is
waited for. We purposely played to get him to zombies.
it was, and I appreciate
He
you
was tired though
letting
by the
me
time
play.
zombies came up. It was towards the end of the day.
And so one of the questions from our community is if I'm going to continue playing zombies in PoE 2, or is there another minion that sparked my fancy? So
You can't answer that yet, I don't think.
Well,
can
we
you?
did only get to the end of Act 1. The auto summoning skeletons is hot,
Mhm.
and that will be able to play into so many other cool
Especially because there may
aspects
be
that-
more than just skeletons. They said that skeletons is just the first of the
Right.
minions they're adding like that. So
Mhm. Basically, they said spirit minions will resummon automatically,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
so good.
The cool thing about zombies, and so one thing that I was always nervous about, they started talking about spirit 5 years ago. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was at the first Exile con that they started introducing spirit. I don't think it was the second one.
No, I think it was the second one. I don't
Was
think
it?
the very first one talked about spirit. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
But it's
either
still
way,
been a while.
it's to me, it feels like it's been a bit. But then they were talking about like, okay, well, minions require spirit to be summoned, and heralds require spirit to be summoned, and auras require spirit to be summoned. And all of a sudden, I'm like, everything requires spirit. Like, what, am I gonna like have one zombie and one aura? Like, what's going on? Do I have to invest in a ton of spirit, but then I have no space for minion survivability? Like, of course, I'm thinking PoE 1, but that's
Mhm.
all I have to go on. So I have all these concerns about how much spirit is going to play into it. One thing that just now, this is just me as the learning experience, but zombies did not. So I would raise my zombies, and right off the bat, like the second I got that gem, I was allowed to raise 10 zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that's going to stay or not, but it balanced really well because at the beginning, they're very fragile and they would just keep running. And
And you have
yes,
to
you need a
resummon them.
corpse to raise. But the interesting thing is that because they needed a corpse to raise, yes, they're permanent minions, but because they need a corpse, they don't auto res.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't auto res, they don't require spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So now in my heart, with all my concerns that I have, I'm like, oh man, I love this auto resing stuff. And I've been playing for the last 4 hours with all this wicked auto resing stuff. And how, like, obviously I'm not going to play zombies anymore. All these guys auto res. Like, this is the best. But then I get to zombies and I'm like,
You
Wait a
can have
second.
10 of them without.
now I
losing
can have
spirit.
10 and I
Mhm.
don't lose any spirit. So now I can have all my auras that I want. Or I could just have more skeletons, or I could have support skeletons, or what about my specter? Because the specter, even though it requires a corpse because of the complexity of the skill,
Of the actual skill, yeah.
they let it auto res. And I'm like, because it only needs the corpse the one
One
time,
time.
not
Mhm.
infinitely. And now I'm like, now my one button build brain is like, this is fantastic. zombies are even more valuable now because of this and that. But one thing, when I was playing with zombies, I had no idea how zombies were going to work. I didn't realize till halfway through my gameplay session that I could even touch on zombies, that it was a level 4 active skill gem at the time. So I was just going with, I didn't have any opportunity to invest in minion survivability. There was some at the beginning, but I'm like, I'm doing auto-res skeletons and temporary scorpions. Like I'm not going to invest in minion life. I want to kill stuff. So by the time zombies came out, that's when I started looking at my respec options with gold, but we're like looking at other things, and we weren't sure if we could have 2 scepters or not, or if you were going to continue with said build or a different one. And so I didn't spend any gold. Justin and I, in our experience, it's probably not going to be this way for everyone else, but we had to share gold because one of us
we're on
was
the same account.
Right. Yeah. One of us was logged in as a guest. It wasn't like he was logged in as tags and I was logged in with my Record of Days account.
Yeah.
He was player 1 and I was logged in as player 1's guest. So we shared gold. That'll still be stupid if that's the case going forward.
It won't be the case if it's separate accounts, but I think it will be the case if it's guests of the player. But I do agree. It was a little bit tough, but I think it's too bad. Had we known that the footage wasn't going to save, the whole reason we stopped playing the Witch and the Warrior was literally just for last week's episode. I was like, hey, if we want some content, we're not allowed to show this, and we want to put something in the background, why don't we just play as the Monk and the Ranger for an hour? It gives us something to loop in the background so they can see the new gameplay. Had we known that footage was not going to wreck and that I could have just reached out, Try was awesome to give us his footage, we would have continued. And unfortunately, that was right at the point where Tyler had got the zombies. So we didn't really get a whole lot of time to progress further with the zombies. I don't think we ever even got a chance to I think he looked at just the first level of supports for the zombies. So like we really didn't get a chance to get too far into it, but it was seeming like it was going to get to that point where he literally could have like an army around him, which was pretty cool.
But it wasn't overpowering, but it also wasn't overwhelming because I had skeletons and I wasn't using the scorpion skill anymore because it didn't seem valuable in a boss fight. It was still a very easy experience to manage, but I wasn't overwhelmed with any buttons that I had to hit. Zombies were really weak in terms of their survivability, but again, I was
not spec'd into it.
Sure. And I could use, for people that are unsure how uncut gems work, zombies required an uncut gem level 4. You couldn't unlock them with an uncut gem level 3. It had to be 4 or higher. But there are supports that are support level 1, support level 2, support level 3. So I ended up using, because I didn't have any minion survivability at that point and I went all offense, I went with Meat Shield, which they deal less damage, but they have more damage resistance. And I did notice a substantial difference. It was a lot of fun to play. I still had to res them often, especially in the boss fights, but it was a really fun experience to play. And I loved the concept that they didn't require spirit. That really puts a whole different spin on the prospect of tree investment. Because remember, tree investment, there's no life. Like all I invested in was either spirit or minion damage or attributes. And the attributes were just as they came along. I was aiming for spirit and I took all the minion damage along the way. And I didn't feel like again, only act 1, but I didn't feel like my character was hurting as a result. The things that I was dying from were because I was zoning out.
Yeah, my focus for my character was stun, and I could actively feel the benefit of going into stun. And it was really fun sitting on the couch being like, all right, he's about to get stunned. And so then, you know when you're going to try and hit with some bigger hits, and we know we're a little bit safe for a second or whatever it was. But I really enjoyed it. I had such a good time, despite the things, the loot, we have issues with the loot.
There was way too much loot. I was so disheartened by that.
Yeah, I think my biggest problem was there was too much normal items dropping. Like we just weren't getting, which whatever, we'll see. That's just how the game works right now. And you're going to have to need a loot filter in PoE 2, just like you do in PoE 1. I don't think that's going to change. But it did feel like there was too much normal loot. We were very rarely seeing rares drop. There were a decent amount of magic items dropping, but way too much white items. It was a little bit annoying to see that many white items dropping.
Not even halfway through Act 1, Justin and I were ignoring almost all the loot.
Yeah.
We knew what we were looking for because you got used to your character, and that's nice. And yes, there's other characters, other classes in the game that all make sense. But it got to the point where, I've walked past 20 scepters. Well, they're all level 1 scepters with the level 1 skeletons with all 100 spirit. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? It dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped. It was that's overall, the one part that I just.
It was the only thing, that I'd really like to see them improve. But overall, man, it was so much fun. We had such a blast. So a big shout out again to Grinding Gear Games for inviting us out there. We had a good time. We got to wrap this up, my friend. So this is it. Forever Exiled 245. I'm Justin, AK Tags.
But Justin, we didn't even talk about half of anything I wanted to.
And he's Tyler, Wrecker of Days. We'll talk about it in After Dark. It'll be awesome. Patrons, we'll see you in After Dark. Everybody else, we'll see you next week for 246. If you look for more information, you'll find down below. We got a website, foreverexiled.com. We're on Twitter, foreverexiled82. We have a very fun Discord. Pop in there and say hello. And patrons, other ways to support the podcast, you will find them down below, as well as on foreverexiled.com. Thanks.
One thing I have to throw in is the haste aura that enemies would have, the mod. It was so visually obvious, you didn't need to read it.
It was great.
That was amazing. The enemy mods were so visual, you knew what you were fighting without needing to read the mods.
Great call.
Come on, man.
Way to end it.
Oh, and then we didn't even talk about disenchanting. Oh, just.
Best ending ever.